So yeah, I was there in Kentucky when you sent that. And so I was like, that's so cool. Yeah, we need to do this. Yes, yes,
I'm
yes.
so glad and thank you, because I know you're busy. So thank you for carving out some time to have the conversation, because I think it's so valuable. Especially, I have so many teacher friends that I'm watching them post like on their stories and online right now about like counting down the days until school is over because they're so burnt out and just like
Yeah.
done. And kids too, but I was like, this is a conversation I feel like we need to have so people can simmer with it over the summer, take what resonates, leave the rest, and then go into the next school year
Right.
with some more information and a different approach, maybe
Right.
refreshed approach.
Yeah. So like how does that work with I'm looking up because I'm looking at I have 3 screens, so I'm looking at your the notes you sent.
Mm-hmm.
So so how does that work? Like what platform will we be on?
So I have my podcast that's Life Altogether with Heather.
Okay.
And I'm launching my YouTube channel this month too. That'll be the same name. And so, yeah. And so I'll put them on there. As far as the video part, because podcast is all audio, so that's simple. But as far as video goes, it can either be us on camera, just like this, or I can take clips of us on camera, and then other pieces can be like I can use slideshow or whatever to like just have bullet points of what we're talking about, or if we're talking about stats on something, I could just have that cited and noted there. So people who are watching it on a video platform like YouTube can have something other than just us here talking,
Okay.
which isn't a bad thing either. I think it's actually fun to see us, but it's also visuals on the screen.
Oh, so cool. That is so cool. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. And so so you edit before releasing. Okay, cool. Because I'm like, girl, what if I say something?
No, yeah, I'll edit. I'll fix it. It's totally fine.
Okay, cool.
I was really excited because I think I might have mentioned this to you before, but I have quite a few friends who are in education in some way, shape, or form. And like you're in education reform, and your consulting and contracts kind of revolve around that. And as does your education. And so I was just like, I'm having all these conversations with my different friends. I was like, I need to somehow bring this together. And although we're not all in the same room in this conversation, like if I have a conversation with y'all individually and bring that forth, and then we could have a group conversation to talk more about
that would be cool.
That would be a super good collaboration. And again, I think it's insightful and it's valuable to people because not just teachers and educators, but parents who are sending them to school. I don't know what options I have or how I can influence or impact my child's education.
Right.
Without, like I don't have time to be on the PTA, or I don't have the money in a private Montessori situation, right? So it's just like providing a new resource and insights from y'all's perspective, which I mean, you have a treasure chest, I feel like, of insight and information just from your experience,
Yeah, I think that'll be really cool. I didn't really, because I've seen like live things and I was like, oh, is it gonna be live? I don't know if I'm ready for live. I know you be getting on there and you be live and I'll be like, oh, she's so good. I don't know about me being live right now. And so I appreciate the part of being able to like review and edit and all of that. So I like that.
Cool,
and then one day.
Yeah, I can share it with you before I publish it so that you can listen through or whatever you want to do. And then one day if you ever feel comfortable live, we could do that too.
I will eventually. I just, I'm like, I'm even like right now, like I'm at a space of like there's so much more I need to be doing like around like social media, and I just can't wrap my mind around because I'm like, I don't know, I just feel like it brings about vulnerability for me for some reason. Like when you're starting to put, when you're putting thoughts and ideas out there. I used to be okay with it, but lately I'm like, I don't know if I want to say that, and so I kind of question, like, should I say that? And so then by the time I've done that, gone back and forth, had thoughts in my mind, I don't do it. So
Oh yeah, you just keep scrolling. Just keep scrolling,
yeah, I
right?
keep
It's
scrolling.
like, never mind. No, I
Yeah.
totally get that. And I think too, I was saying I have like several friends who we have these conversations. And so I just recently had one, a call just like this, a collaborative call with a friend. And when I shared the outline of notes with her, she was like, this is gonna ruffle feathers. And I was like, yeah, it is. And I was like, if you're uncomfortable with it, that's fine, that's fine. But I was like, I think that there's a lot of people who need to hear this perspective
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
feathers are ruffled anyways. People are
Hmm.
uncomfortable. They just don't know how to initiate change,
Hmm. Yeah.
and hearing someone who you, for example, are initiating change in the school systems, you're going in and evaluating how the system is working, isn't working, right? And then putting some processes in there.
Hmm.
It kind of gives hope and also like
Yeah.
illuminates a path where they're like, well, this is something I can do or get on board with or participate in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let it ruffle some feathers and make some people uncomfortable, but that's what initiates change anyway. Change ain't
Right. Exactly. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I like that. I really like that. So like what you have here as the notes, like, I mean, I'm like that, I mean, they're all, I mean, just even the sequencing of it, like, um, and I think like the way our relationship is that it'll be organic and not like, what I mean, like it's like you ask a
it's
question,
Q&A. Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, I think yes, this all, like everything you have here is like, it makes sense, and is definitely what needs to be talked about. I was thinking, I was kind of thinking about like, how can we, but I could see based on my response how it could lend its way to move into talking about social emotional well-being of everyone involved in the education system. But I can see based on like how I might respond in around one of those, how that it will lend itself for me to bring that out. Because I was like, do we directly need a question around social emotional well-being? And I was like, oh, maybe not. Because I kept kind of going back and forth with, I was like, because I think based upon what you have here as like the
Yeah. I think
uh, overarching thoughts, like I could see how I could come to that at some point within that.
that ultimately comes down to the way that you can influence the classroom for your own child or
Hmm.
as an educator, how you can is about your own personal well-being and
Yeah.
holding a space that is safe and healthy for these kids
Yeah.
to learn, to be able to express themselves and explore, because that's what school is. That's what learning is. It's all
Right.
exploration, right? And
Right.
when we feel safe and when we feel heard and seen, that facilitates an environment for that naturally.
Right.
I think as the adults in the room, we do have to have a sense of well-being and taking care of ourselves.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because I literally just, with one of my coaching conversations this week, yesterday. Is it only Wednesday? It's only Wednesday. I think it was Monday. Um, I I was telling a leader, like, I'm sorry, I'll try harder. You have to be better for yourself before you can be better for others. Like, I was like, you have to, because there's a lot of guilt associated with taking care of yourself for a lot of people in positions of leadership. And so, I was trying to really reiterate and re-hone in on that for this individual. And then I had to even like take it a step further as to getting her to make a commitment for this week. Let's try one little tiny thing. What are you going to do for yourself this week? Just this week, you know, think about something you want to do for yourself that you've been saying you want to do, you haven't done, and so forth. Because I was really like, shocked around the fact that she was saying on Sundays she works, like it's a work day for her. And I was just like, yeah, I was like, why? You have Monday through Friday, and then I said, you have to give yourself, time for that rejuvenation, that giving yourself time to decompress from all that you deal with. You're in a high stress position. Like you have to give yourself that time to do that. And one day I just don't see it happening. Like for me, when I get back from a 3-day, 4-day um travel, like I'm exhausted. Like I literally am, like, because my mental energy has been used, I'm dealing with a lot of different situations, and then just physically I'm exhausted from traveling, right? And so it takes me like a day, probably a day and a half
Right,
to
yeah, traveling always kind of took it out of me too, because you're outside of your
yeah.
normal, like, comforts and routines and structures that, like, normally make it easier to decompress. But it's
Mm-hmm.
different when you're, like, going to a hotel room or you're going to dinner with the colleagues and stuff, like, it's just longer
Right.
days, you know?
Right. Exactly. And so I'm like, you have to give yourself that time. And so it was confirmed this past weekend when I was at that conference. And the presenter, he was like, after I do a training, he's like, I literally go to the spa for like a day. And he's like, just to like bring myself, like recenter and, just get my energy back. And I was like, so I was like, you know what? Because I never really thought about it. Like, you're just tired. Like when I would come back from a trip, like I would kind of feel guilty around, like, I literally just want to be in this bed all day. Like I don't want to have to think.
Yeah,
And
but
so,
it's part of being human, but especially a human that
yeah,
gives so much. I think the giving is, you were talking about that, and as a teacher and educator, you give so much all day long,
right,
7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. or whatever it is. And then beyond that too, right? Because then you go pick up your own kids and then you make dinner and you have your routine and all of that. Like you're giving, giving, giving. So
yeah,
you have to take that space to give to yourself. Because
yeah,
what do you have to overflow if you don't?
right. And so I literally was like, when he said that, I was like, okay, because I had to start, even like I had to start, like if I had to have a meeting the next day when after travel, I always make sure they're after 1 o'clock, because I know for myself, like I'm like just not feeling it, like getting up that next morning, like I want to get up and like work out and things like that. But that's about it. Like I just want to just kind of like be able to just be in a space of just kind of going at my own pace. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so I
I
had to
love
start doing that too, because I would have to be like, okay, do not schedule yourself, in the morning a day after you travel. Like, what are you thinking? Like, I had to put some practical things in place. And so I shared that with her. I said, you've got to figure out like what is practical for you to be able to deposit into yourself. I was like,
yeah.
because if you don't and you just keep giving, debits, then you're gonna max out. And so, she was like, I've never thought about it in that way. I said, yeah, your deposit, you've gotta give back to yourself. I was like, you're not gonna be able to stay in this level for a very long time if you don't figure out what that needs to look like for you.
Because burnout's so real. And I think it is
Hmm.
because not only are we not taught like energetic hygiene and energetic boundaries, right? Like of
Hmm.
releasing and refreshing and protecting the energy that we have and the space that we have. So not only are we not taught that, but then I think especially as women, I can't only speak from a man's experience, but a woman's experience is that we are guilted for giving to ourselves. Now you're
Yes.
selfish, you know? And I'm like, there's a difference between being selfish and valuing yourself.
Hmm.
Very, very different there, you know? And
Yeah.
it's like, I have to value myself because I want to give so much and I have so much to give. And if I have so much to give, that equals value, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
How do I
Yeah.
honor that? How do I really honor
Mhm.
that? And a lot of times it is just being a couch potato is incredibly rejuvenating sometimes.
If I could binge watch a show like, for half a day, I mean, that is my rejuvenating practice.
Yeah,
And I shouldn't have to feel guilty about it. And that's what I was trying to tell her. I was like, you do not need to feel guilty.
right.
Just do it and
You're allowed
accept
to
this is
enjoy your
what,
life.
yeah, this is what you need at that moment. I said, what happens is people end up doing what things that are unhealthy instead of healthy because you haven't really reflected around like what does that need to look like for me in a positive manner. And so, then this is why you have people doing destructive things, that aren't healthy for you, such as drinking too much,
Binge eating,
binge eating.
comfort.
Yeah, yeah, all of that. And so it's like you gotta think about like what does that need to look like for you where it's healthy. If it's go run, some people it's running. For me, that is not it. I'm like, good, good. I love that you do that, but that's just not me. Running is not it, but some people that is. That's their thing. But and
I
some
found
people it's
that
working out.
for me, before I really got into the fitness, because I mean, you know me now that I lived in the gym and became my sanctuary and my safe place. But before that chapter of my life, I was like, I just have to go move my body. Like I knew I needed
Mhm,
that. I felt that. Like I had a lot of
mhm,
stored up energy,
mhm,
the go that I was like, I need to go get this so that I could decompress. And
mhm,
but going and running, yeah, was not my thing. So I would get on the treadmill and I would take a book and I'd be like, this is a good way, like my body's burning
mhm,
the energy and I'm still getting to,
mhm. Yeah.
kind of zone out the way that I might on the couch or in the bed a little bit.
Mhm,
And I know
mhm,
lots of people who watch their favorite shows while they're on the treadmill or doing
mhm.
and stuff. And I'm just like, find how it works for you and it'll evolve.
Right,
Also, it may not always look
right,
that way, but if that's how it looks right now, you know what I mean?
right,
Like, yeah, put it in the calendar. Go do it.
right. Exactly. Like you have to. I mean, it just so much with just in our world, society nowadays, and just all the stress of life. Like you have to.
Yeah,
You
get
really
off
do.
the hamster wheel for just
Yeah.
for a minute. So, before we go further, I didn't really introduce you either, and I would would like to just make sure that anybody who is listening kind of understand the perspective that you're coming from. So, May, my lovely entrepreneur, businesswoman, super empowered friend, you want to tell us a little bit about just the work that you're in with education reform and your contractor things.
So a lot of my work stems around supporting school districts and schools with continuous improvement. And so, what does that look like for leaders? What does that look like for central office leaders, for school leaders? What does that look like in the day to day with building relationships with community and families? And so, it's really about just making sure that our leaders are equipped and have the capacity to really support those individuals that they work with on a daily basis. And so it's looking at it also through an equity lens around making sure that everyone that's involved in this system that they are supporting is getting what they need. And so what does that look like? It looks different for every school. It looks different for every student. And so it's just really being tuned in and really reflecting and refining on, are we doing what's best in the best interest of the students and families that we serve every day. And so um, you know it's very intriguing to be able to do this work because I learn as much from those that I'm working with as they learn from me. And so it really just, it's a collective effort to really be reflective, and be transparent, and be open to feedback. And so, a lot of times it's building, for me as a leader in the work, is building that safety around what that needs to look like to support these leaders that I'm providing that executive coaching for, and just making sure that, I'm providing that quality level of support that they need. And then it's operationalized in what they do every day. And so I just, it's complex. It's
There's so many
comprehensive.
layers.
Yeah, it's so many layers. It's comprehensive, and it's continuous. It's ongoing. It is not anything that, I think everybody needs a coach. I have an executive coach for myself too, because as I'm growing and developing as a leader, I think we're all growing. We continuously grow and evolve in our life, and so it's just important to understand just making sure for myself that I do provide based on their needs, the tiered support that's really going to help transform the work that they do every day, and which will result in our students having better outcomes.
And I love that. That's so important, because our school system has become really the foundational ground of where, like, our kids are becoming who they're going to become. They're there more than they are at home. And so as much as, as a parent, we want to be influential, that's where they are the most. And so our educators being that influence, we want to be able to trust them, and we want them to be healthy and to be able to show up fully.
Mm-hmm.
When they're burning the candle at both ends and don't have the right structures to support them, and don't have the leadership that's actually taking them the way that they need to go, to be that for our students, for our children, then it all starts to break down. So, it starts, it's complex. There's lots of different plugins, but it's definitely impacted by the leadership in those schools and the support that they have, the guidance that they have in order to guide our kids.
Yes, because what we see when it comes to leadership competencies, there's so many that a leader needs to have. And so it's really about, building that capacity around those competencies, to really make sure that, again, they're leading in a way of that is effective, and that's efficient. And so, you have to, it's really making sure that you understand, whenever you are working with leaders, like, what are those competencies? What are those leadership skills that are needed for someone to be able to be effective and be able to execute? And so it's, there's just a really honing in on, if you don't have them all, but can you develop them? Do you have the capacity to be able to develop them? And are you coachable? And sometimes it lends itself to that, because everyone's not perfect. Everyone doesn't have every competency that is needed, but they can be developed. I believe in grit, and being able and willing. I think when you have that mindset, then I think you can develop in those areas where you might not be as strong, and then be able to perform as you are learning and developing in that area. So it's, again, like we said, it's complex and comprehensive, but it's not impossible. I'll say that it's not impossible, especially if you have the mindset around being willing and wanting to actually be the leader that you need to be for the good of those who you serve. So
And you said such a key word there, which was being willing. Literally, that was my prayer this morning. I'm like, God, I am willing, show me the way. And yeah, that, I mean, that's as a leader and as anyone who serves, especially, I think, every teacher is a leader. They're leading a classroom full of kids, right? So even if a woman shows up in the class and she's like, I'm not really a leader, I'm a teacher. No, you embody both. You are. They are looking to you for mentorship and guidance. So it is, those skills are so important, but especially being open to
Yeah.
saying, I'm not perfect. There are other ways and I can try
Mhm.
new approaches. And there's so much to discover in that because every kid is unique, every classroom is unique. There's how many different learning styles, right? And each
Yeah.
each kid has a different level of each one. So yeah, there's just a lot there that you just have to be open to say
Yes.
I can try new things.
Yeah, I remember, I can't remember, I think it was in my master's program. There was a question asked for us to answer, and it was something around like, what do you, I don't remember specifically what the question was, but it was like, what do you do as who are you as a teacher? What do you do as a teacher? Because I was in my master's program working on my master's in education leadership. And the question, it was a simple question, but then to me, it was still packed with, it could be unpacked to being so much more, right? So I had wrote, like, I remember listing out like all these things. And this is when I was a teacher. I was like, not only am I a teacher, I'm a friend, I'm a parent, I'm a counselor, I'm a nurse, I'm a, I'm a, you know,
Well, and how many moms that aren't teachers that can relate to this too, right? They're all of the above
yes,
as well. Yeah.
yes. Because I was like, to my students, I have to be all those things because some of the situations that their family life, things that they deal with. So, some of the dynamics of their personal situations are, not as positive as it needs to be. So I found myself not just being a teacher, like, you think, oh, I'm just going to go in here and teach this specific content and then that's it. No, there's so much more to it, And so I remember when I finally came to that conclusion for myself where I was like, you're not just a teacher, you're all these things, I'm a coach, and so, it's just, it's such it can be a rewarding pace to be in as a role of a teacher. But then again, it can be, stressful as well because like you said, you're dealing with a lot of differences and it's trying to figure out how do I meet everybody where they are. And it's not only that, just with our students, it's with as you move into administration, it's dealing with adults and how they are and personalities. And then it's, you've got to figure out all these different people and where they are and their belief systems, philosophy, but somehow you got to bring everybody to that one focus of, this is our goal. This is what, we're here to do. And this is how we're going to do it. And, making sure everybody's on board. And that's a lot.
That's a challenge. Do
That is
you
a lot.
do you feel like teacher or even the administrators, do you feel like burnout is a common thing that you see when you come into these schools that need some kind of reform or, structural changes?
I think sometimes it could be based on the lack of leadership. And which I think it comes back to that in the end. I always think it comes back to the leadership because as a leader, you have to know who can and will, and you have to, it's that situational leadership, like where you have to really know, like, who are those who are, willing and able and they're ready and, have that drive. And then you have some of those who are just the ones who are your what do they call that? Your drainers who, your energy drainers. I think that's someone has written that where it's like energy drainers. But the ones who are they don't need to be there anymore. And so with that, when you have a lot of that in schools that are considered, your challenging schools, low performing, they need to be turnaround, so forth. You have to really try to not try to, you have to, really figure out who those are that need to really get off the bus. And you have to coach them out of the profession because they're not good for kids. And so, I truly believe that we have a responsibility and accountability to that. And we can't let people just be in spaces that do not need to be in spaces that are unhealthy for the students and families that we serve every day. And so that takes a lot of courage of a leader to do that, because not only courage, but it is work too, to be able to, it takes a lot of work and energy to have to try to coach someone out of the profession. And so it can be a lot, again, on someone, and which can bring about that feeling of just, where you're just feeling defeated because it's just so much work you're having to do around that, when you have maybe 5 to 10 people that do not need to be in these spaces with children. And then you have those other ones who you're trying to continue to coach up because they're willing, and they want to be there, they want to do it, but they might not have all of the capacity, but they want to learn, they want to. So then you're having to coach them up. And so that takes a lot. That's a lot of energy to do that with, anywhere from 20 to 800 and something staff members, And so, it's a lot of work, and that takes energy and effort and execution. 3 E's: energy, execute, effort. Wow.
Like, take notes there. I need to do my homework.
Yeah. So it just takes so much. And so you have to, like we were talking about earlier, you have to be in a space where you can do that all day, every day. And so in order to do that, you have to make sure that you're getting what you need as well. And so I think it's a combination of that. Like you said, the burnout, it comes from us not depositing back into ourselves what we need to be able to give all of that energy to execute in an effective way. So, yeah, I said so much. I don't even know what I said.
No, I mean, no, it was so good, because it is teacher burnout is what I hear most of my friends who are in education or have been teachers. Is, like I said, they're counting down the days right now going, when is summer going to get here? I'm exhausted, and I'm curious to know your perspective on the classroom environment, how conducive it is for energetic boundaries and energetic hygiene, right? When a lot of teachers only get a 20-minute lunch break during the day, and they don't get bathroom breaks, right? And they have a classroom of 25 kids and to one person. And like, how, what tools maybe, I guess that starts with the leadership too, right? But it also has to do with school funding. Like, do they have the funding to have a teacher's aide or to have help so that a teacher doesn't face burnout, so they are able to be well?
Yeah, be well, yeah, and whole for the kids that they serve. Yeah, I agree. I know that there has been a lot of emphasis on social emotional well-being for not only our students, but our educators as well. And so, a lot of districts have done some great things with creating spaces for teachers to be able to step away into and be able to reset. And just like a kid needs to reset, an adult might need to reset. For me, when I need to reset, I go into a pre-K classroom and I just sit on the floor with them. And they are so complimentary and they're so sweet. And, they make me feel so good. And I always go to a pre-K classroom because it reminds me of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so I get a little teary-eyed because I'm like, I'll never forget one day I had a really challenging day, and I went into this pre-K classroom, and one of the little girls was like, "You look like Beyonce," and I was just like, "Oh."
You're like, I'm all better now. Thank you.
And they were just like so sweet, and they were just like, "What's your name? How are you doing?" Like they were just so sweet and just like, and I was like, okay, this is why I do what I do every day, because these babies, they need someone to advocate for them and be there for them. And so that's how I reset, for myself. But everyone needs that space. And so I said that all to say is that, finally in education, we are seeing that, our teachers, our staff, they do need those strategies to be able to be better and able to do what they need to do every day. And so, what does that look like for you? Like for me, I could see if I was still in the classroom today, I would be real transparent with my kid. Today I am not feeling well. I'm tired, being able to be transparent, because it is a community that you're creating in that classroom so that they can also feel that safety as well, to be able to say, Miss McCowan, today I'm not, feeling so well. I broke up with my boyfriend last night, whatever. And then being able to grace them with that grace, to be able to say, I understand. And so it's the same thing. It's reciprocated with the teacher, I'm not in a good space today. Guys, I need y'all to help me, to be able to do better today, or whatever, or to feel better. I just need y'all to think about me, put me in your thoughts, And
Yeah.
so, and it's just having that. I think it's real important to have that, create that conducive space around being transparent about how we're feeling, how we're showing up in spaces, and what's happening. Now, you can't tell them everything, but you can give them a peek into, knowing that all adults aren't okay. We're not okay every day. And so you need to know that sometimes you're not okay. And so is it that if the first 5 minutes of class, because the teacher, I'm not feeling okay. Hey guys, can we take 5 minutes and just have a breathing exercise, a mindfulness exercise I'm going to do with you, because right now I'm not feeling okay. It's okay to do that. And I think that's the type of communities we have to create in our schools, that are one about being transparent around what is happening with us, on a daily basis, the feelings that we're having, the emotions that we're having, what's happening, without being too sharing of, what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. All
I
the
love
tea.
that. I love
But
that, being more like community oriented, and also, um, letting kids know that, like you said, that we're human. Yeah, I'm grown up. Because I think as kids, we kind of like look to the grown-ups around us thinking they've figured it out. They graduated college or high school, and they went and got a job, and they're paying, and they've got it figured out, and they know everything, because as adults we are the authority in their life, and so they just make those assumptions naturally. But letting them know that, like, this is a continuous journey, right? And you're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days, and they don't feel shame for their emotions and for their own energy, right? It's like, yeah, hey, you know what? If you're tired today, like,
right.
take it a little bit slower. You don't have to rush to get your work done necessarily. Like, let's do a pace here, and like,
Mm-hmm.
just communicating with them in that way, I think, is incredibly
Yeah.
valuable. But also, emotional intelligence is something that I wish had been curriculum when I was in school, or at least maybe not if it's not a curriculum, then it's at least exampled through the leaders in the classrooms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where
Mm-hmm.
able to show up and, like you said, doing a breathing exercise, or saying, let's have a moment of silence, or like, you know what, I can sense you're a little tense today, so and so, like,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about it over here while everybody's doing their work, or whatever needs to be facilitated in that space
Right.
to make it conducive for learning, and
Yes.
also just healthy energetically.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
that there's a epidemic of our home spaces not being healthy.
Mm-hmm.
That translates into the classroom. When a kid
Yeah.
shows up from being, in a tense home, a stressed out home, where maybe parents are
Mm-hmm.
yelling, or there's emotional or verbal abuse or even physical abuse happening, or they're not getting the nutrition that they need in order to function at the optimal, place, that
Right.
comes into the classroom as well. And so, yeah, I think our teachers being mindful of that and allowing that to be, and also
Yeah.
being the example of like, you know what, I didn't have a good breakfast this morning, so I'm going to eat an apple while I'm teaching, whatever. Like humanness needs to be allowed in the
Yeah.
classroom in that way.
I love the word humanness, like you said, because we're all humans. We all have needs. Everyone has these needs. I remember specifically, I used to, and I don't like to say strategy, I guess a practice that I would do is, when I noticed a student that was maybe disengaged, more than I would like them to be. I might not have addressed it in the class at that time, but I would go find where they were, like during their electives, and bring them out. And I would speak with them and let them know that I was concerned. I always start with I noticed, and this concerned me. And then honestly, I would say, I'm just really wanting to make sure you are okay. Are you okay? Is there something that I can help you with? Because I notice, you're valuable to the classroom, you're valuable to our learning environment. And so I would do that from time to time, depending on the student, because I knew their, their personality and kind of what bothered them and not, and so forth. And so I was always very careful as to when I would not call a kid out, but address the situation in the classroom versus me going and finding you outside of the classroom space to have that conversation with you. Because I want you to know that I see you. I know how you normally show up. And I'm a little offended that today you didn't show up in that way, so I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Are we okay? And so that is another thing that I always used to do and practice with some of my students, because I know that they did have dysfunctions that they were dealing with in life, from family. And so yeah, I would make sure that I would check in with them, because I noticed that they were different in our learning environment for that day. So yeah.
I love that because I know personally in
Mm-hmm.
school when I went through breakups or was being bullied by other girls or whatever it might have been, it was so just like loving when I had certain teachers who would approach me with that of like, I
Mm-hmm.
can tell you're going through something if you want to talk about it, or if you just want to come sit in my classroom in your down period, you can come in here. Like this is an okay place for you to be.
Right.
And like I didn't always feel like my parents noticed what I was going through. And partially, I mean, I hid it from them too. I didn't want them asking my business, but you do at the same time. You kind of
Right.
do, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it was great that even sometimes when my parents didn't notice, the teacher would notice and approach it. And so it just felt like people cared. To be seen and to be heard is so validating in itself that I think
Yeah.
our kids absolutely need that, because especially being in classrooms of 20 plus kids, it's easy to get lost in the sauce, and it
Yeah.
just all the wash. So I love
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah. Yes. I when I think about, like, as we are, because I think everyone, I don't think of it as, it's just parents, educators, school system. I know it's important that everyone is involved in the education structure and the reform that's needed. We're all doing it right now in isolation as districts, trying to figure out what's the best way, because everyone's unique. But there is so much to say when we come together collectively in the right mindset around doing what's right for children. I think when we come in a collective effort around really focusing on, what are those practices that needs to be a part of our schools to make sure we're doing what is right for our kids so that they can go out here and be, as we say, productive citizens within our society and be able to be their best as human beings. We have a responsibility and accountability to that. But with that, I think with that responsibility and accountability, it's important for us to make sure that we're coming to those spaces of decision making in the right mindset, in the right way of thinking. And I think a lot of times as to why we can't collectively do that is because everyone has these agendas around what they think is right instead of taking perspective and hearing. Is like hearing and understanding that one way is not the right way, but how can we collectively determine what can we do together to make a significant impact in our education system. And so it's disheartening when we have these struggles between agendas and adults that we're still missing out on what we're supposed to be doing for the students that we serve. And so I think, I said all that to say is that we have to continue to really try to create those spaces of working together productively. We can disagree. We might, but we still have to always come back to what is the goal? Like, what are we trying to do? And why is the why behind it? Why is this so important? And as we're thinking through the how, I think if we really just center on the goal, if we all can collectively determine this is the goal, then I think we can together, despite differences, despite political views, despite philosophy differences, I still believe that we can determine the how together collectively. And so it's going to be continuous. It's continuous. It's always continuous cycle of improvement because we're evolving as a society, as people, and so it's always going to be a system that we're going to have to continuously reflect upon. Are we doing this right? Are we doing right now? Are we doing this right? Is this what we need to be doing? Based upon it's ever evolving. It's always going to evolve, and so we're going to have to continuously always reflect: are we doing what is right now? And so
right now it's more important, I think, too, to give attention to, because our culture, what's going on in the world right now has such an impact on learning, on attention, on well-being, on all of the influences on how our kids are able to show up and retain information and learn and collaborate together, and our teachers and educators as well. And so we really have to pay attention to right now, because I think something that I've heard many times in the conversations about our school system is that it's always about 20 years behind the data. Right. And so while we're evolving it and refining it, we're always a little outdated because we're collecting data on right now. And so by the time we're able to apply it, it's a little bit late. So I think,
yes,
we have to be mindful of that. And also going back to like that common goal is, without the data, what do we know? Well, we know that we're human beings. We know that we need to be healthy in mind, body, heart, and soul. We know that we need safe spaces for these kids. We know that a loving environment is much more conducive for their growth and exploration than a strict, rigid structure is. And so, those are the things that I think that, yes, while the data is behind and while we're still learning about humanness and trying to keep up with, technology and, like I said, what's going
Mhm.
on in the world. At the root of it, it is about like wellness, well-being, and healthiness, and encouraging that by being an example of it and creating
Mhm.
a space that
Mhm.
allows humanness and
Mhm.
sees people. Like, we don't want to overlook, kids get lost and stuff and get passed along like they can't read in second grade, and somehow they make it to high school and are still kind of illiterate. And it's like, how did you get lost in that mix up? How did you get overlooked? What a disservice that we've done for you
Mhm.
and our education system. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think that if we're looking at how we can impact right now while we're, you know, implementing and applying all of the other things, it's okay, is and I would love to hear more from you as well. But I think that, focusing on like, what is this environment right now? Is it healthy? And how can I encourage these kids to be healthy in mind, body, and soul right now in the space that I'm holding in this classroom?
Yeah. Um, I think with that, I think it goes back again to recognizing that it's a need. It is definitely a need as we are working to develop our students around, like you said, that emotional intelligence. And it's recognizing and then also emphasizing that they have a right and a need there. It's a, I don't know if it's a right, but there is value around being whole.
Oh
There's
yeah.
so much value around that. It's you have to know that in order to continue through your trajectory of life, that wholeness is just very important for you to be able to make it throughout this journey, because throughout your journey there's ups and downs, there's you know um
And there will be failures. There will
right,
be
right,
failures. There will
exactly,
be, yeah, right.
exactly.
It's not just about your letter
Hmm.
grade. It's not just about your GPA, and it's not just about the dollars that you're going to make when you graduate or go to college, right?
Right.
It's not just about all of those things. It is about you as a person
Hmm.
feeling good from the inside out
Right.
in a good, healthy way that's sustainable as well.
Yes. Yes. And so we it's again, it's comprehensive. um there's no one way of doing it. um I think it's just, again, it's recognizing that it's necessary, and it's making sure that in some way, some form, it is inclusive within our day to day with students. What does that look like? It's going to look different amongst classrooms, amongst schools, amongst districts, but we have to make sure that, again, it's of importance, a priority, to really say that, we're supporting our students with those skill sets around being whole as they progress throughout life. Those life skills, that they need, those skill sets, everything. It's about wholeness. It's not just about the cognitive, the academics. It's about the other piece of, that the intelligence around well-being. It's needed so much more than ever. I mean, I just think about how much our kids, when I was in the classroom, they dealt with a lot, but they deal with a lot more now than I mean, I can ever imagine. Like, I didn't have to deal with half the things that our students deal with on a day-to-day basis within their homes, within their communities, um, within society, what they're seeing grown adults doing and witnessing. And it says a lot to how we have to value around them being whole individuals. And it's not just about a test score, but it's about their mental, emotional, spiritual well-being, like where they are in those spaces and in that. And so again, It's and I don't think it's in isolation. I don't think it has to be in isolation. Like it doesn't have to be they have to take a class. I think it has to be embodied in a culture within our schools. And so but that's what I said, it's going to look different for each school, for each classroom, but still, if we know that this is of importance and here are ways and how you can integrate this into your culture in your schools, then let's figure out how are we going to do that for our school, for my classroom. But it has to be a part of the culture in our schools, in our campuses. I have to go.
Yes. No, I know. You gotta pick up your kid. And I need to go pick up my kid, I'm sure. She's given my mom hell, so I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. She's walking now, so she's in everything.
Yeah. But I really appreciate this. I really didn't know that we were doing this today. I thought we were preparing.
Well,
for another day.
I feel like there's definitely a continuation of this conversation that could happen.
Okay, good. Because I was like,
no, sorry. I just pulled it on you. No, I wanted it to be organic and to really just be what we would talk about when we're having lunch together anyways.
Yes.
So I love this, and I do appreciate you taking the time. Again, I think
but let's get back on, because I don't know if you noticed, but I shifted in how I because I was like, oh shoot, we're doing this.
No, it's so good.
But I thought we were I think it's when you said the intro part, I was like, okay.
You're like, oh, okay, sorry, I sprung it on you. Sorry, I didn't realize that.
I guess I was preparing for the podcast.
Yeah.
Like I thought we were kind of getting our thoughts together as to how this is hilarious. That is so funny. That is hilarious. But okay, I do have to go, but please let me know the pictures you decide to use for her. I want to see. Okay. And then send me a picture, because I need to see her. I get on Instagram every once in a while, and I'm so bad right now with social media and everything. But yeah. So I love you, and I will talk to you later.
Okay, love you.
All right, bye.